Hi, ladies and gentlemen. This is Mr. Green. I am starting off this year recording your lessons, and I'm going to record all the lessons so that you will have an opportunity to watch them at any time that you would like. They're all going to be relatively short. When we get together in our class connect time, it'll be time for us to work through some problems and make certain you know how to work all the problems that you have run across. Now, as I showed you in the last class, we went through how the course is organized and where you need to find your lessons and what you're doing with each one of the lessons and what you're going to be doing in the lessons, okay? So what I want to do is I want to jump right into the first lesson that we're going to be looking at. It's 1.2, and it deals with these things called undefined terms. An undefined term is just a starting point. When you take a trip and you go on a travel somewhere, you have to start from somewhere. Well, as we travel through geometry, we have to start with something. And the first thing we're going to start with are three terms that I'm not going to define for you. They're just where we're starting at. Okay? So the first undefined term is called a point. A point is nothing more than a location in space. Right there. That point right there, the one that's glowing now with that little glowy little thing. Okay? That is a point. A point doesn't have any length, it doesn't have any width or depth. It's just a location. That's all you have to keep track of for that information. Okay? Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a bunch of those points and put them right next to each other and extend it out infinitely in both directions. It's going to become a line, okay? A line is just all of the points on a straight unbroken path. It just goes off in both directions. It has length, or it has a length and direction, but no width or depth. It's not any size that you can think of there. It just goes on and on and on and on and on. Okay? Kind of like a teacher. So what the next term we're going to talk about is a plane. And a plane is not that thing flying up in the sky that's flying overhead right at the moment. A plane is all of the points on a flat surface that extend forever in two directions. Okay? It has length and it has width, but it doesn't have any depth. So it's like a piece of paper. If you look at a piece of paper on the edge, it's a flat plane. Virtually no depth whatsoever. Okay? But if you look at it from the front, you would see a length and a width. Okay? Well, it's kind of representative of a plane. It's got that length and width. A plane would extend on forever in every direction and would never end, but it's a good representation of a plane. So you can use it from that perspective. Okay? So, what are some defined terms, Mr. Green? Well, a line segment is a defined term. What do I mean by defined? Well, if I take a line and I put points, identify 2 points on that line, and everything in between those 2 points is called a line segment. It is defined that way. We know what it is. Line, we know it just exists. Well, if I put 2 points on that line, then I know that it is a line segment. Okay? A ray is not just a name of a person. A ray, you put 2 points on a line, A and B. You start at point A, you go through point B, off in that direction, and it gives you a starting point and a direction, and it is defined as a ray. Now, these, you have to know how to write them down. Okay? I've defined all three of these terms, and I haven't told you how to write them down. If I'm looking for a point A, I'm going to use a capital letter, and I'm going to write A. Okay? If I'm looking for a line, I'm going to use capital letters because there's 2 points there, A and B, and I'm going to put a line above it, and I'm going to try to put arrows on the end of that line so that you know that I'm talking about a line AB. If I'm looking at a plane like this one, I'm either going to use a script M to represent this letter right here, or I will have 3 points on it, like that point there, A, that point there, B, and that point there, C, and those 3 points will become my plane, A, B, C. And I have to have 3 points to define a plane. Why? Well, if I only have 2 points, it could be a line that could be going through those 2 points, but 3 points that are not on the same line would be considered a plane. Finally, line segment. Line segment, I'm going to use the same 2 points, A, B. But it's going to be different than a line. I'm going to put a line above it, but there's going to be no arrows on the end of it. That's how you know we're talking about a line segment versus talking about a line. If I'm talking about the ray, AB, I start at A and go through B. I draw my line, my little bar above it, and I put the arrow on one end. That's telling you I'm starting at A and going through B, going that direction. Okay? I know that's a little bit confusing, but that's the way you put these together, is you have to identify each one of them that way, so that you'll see them on tests, you'll see them in questions, okay? So what are some real-world examples of points, lines, and planes? Some of the ones that I like to think about of a real example of a point, pencil. The end of a pencil, that makes a point. When you put it on the paper, that makes a point. A pen. Anything that's a sharp pen at the end of it, that would make a point, okay? That is what we would consider a real-world example of a point. How about a line? What would be an example of a line? Oh, I know, a highway. A highway? Yeah, for those of you that drive, and if you don't drive, you know that it goes on in a direction in a straight, unbroken path. Yeah, there are curves in it, and yeah, there are turns, and yeah, there are stoplights and things like that. I got all that, but it's just a real-world example of a line. It goes on and on and on in both directions, continues. That's an example of a real-world example of a line. How about a plane? Well, Mr. Green, wouldn't a highway also be a plane because it is a flat surface? Yeah, but there's edges on a highway. You know, there's a median, and then there's also the side over here where you run off the highway if you go off to the right too far or off to the left too far. So it's not a good example of a plane. But can you think of another thing that might be an example of a plane? A flat surface that extends on forever? I've already talked about paper, a piece of paper. What would be another one? Well, your screen that you're looking at right now. Right? E. That's an E. It really is an E. Screen. S-C-R-E-E-N. Cool. So the screen, it's a flat surface. That would be an example of a flat plane. How about an angle? Can you think of a real-world example of an angle? Well, how about the corner of your room? Unless you live in a round room, the corner of your room forms an angle. You got two planes that are coming together, the walls. And when those two walls come together, they form an angle. Hey, if those two walls come together with the ceiling, I got a point in the corner of the room. And the walls where they're coming together, there's a line running down. Right here in the room you're at, you've got a point, you've got a line, you've got planes. They're all around you. It's like oxygen. So you've got it all around you in that respect. Here's one of the types of problems that you're going to be looking at. If we're looking at these points, what point is not on the same plane as the rest of them? Point E is sitting up here above all the rest of the points. A, B, C, and D are down here on the bottom, on this plane down here. But E is not on that same point, on that same plane, is it? If I were talking about the plane ECD, that'd be this front plane over here. Points A and B are not on that same plane as that one. That's 2 points that aren't there. So this line isn't on that plane. Now there's a couple of terms that they talk about at this point. One of them is called collinear. And collinear has the word line in it. See the word line right here? Well, what they're talking about that is any points that are on the same line are collinear. So give me a couple of points that are in the same line. Well, E and C are on the same line, aren't they? You'll see there's a line that runs between them. They would be considered collinear. And if I put another point in here, that would be collinear as well with E and C. But it would not be collinear with E and D because it's not on the same line that E and D are on. So it would be a non-collinear point there. The other term they talk about here is coplanar. P-O-A-I-N-E-R. I'm sorry, writing with a mouse, never one of my favorite things. Coplanar. So when we're talking about coplanar, what are we talking about? We're talking about points that are on the same plane. That's exactly what I was talking about here with E. If I'm talking about the plane A, B, C, D, that's the plane down here on the bottom, E is not coplanar. It's off of that plane. It's somewhere else. It's out in space somewhere. But it's not on the same plane. If I'm talking about the front face of this pyramid here, ECD is that front face, then points A and B are not coplanar. They're off of that plane. They're somewhere else. This point that I put over here that I didn't identify a while ago, that point is coplanar with ECD, because it is on that front face. It's on the edge of that front face, but it's on that front face. That's what we're talking about when we're talking about having lines that are collinear and coplanar. So, Mr. Green's kind of confusing. I know it is. Think about a pool table. If I put a couple of balls on a pool table like these two right here, they're on top of the table. They can roll around on this table. They bounce off the bumpers and they roll all over the place. Those are considered on the same plane because they can roll around, they can touch each other and so forth. But that would be on the same plane. But this ball over here that's sitting in the pocket, it's down below the level of the plane, the level of the table. This one is not on the same plane. It's non-coplanar because it's not on the same plane that these rest of these, the other pool balls that are sitting on top of the table would be. Hopefully that helps make it a little clearer. That's the way we use planar, coplanar, and collinear. Okay? If they're on the same line, they're collinear. If they're not on the same line, they're non-collinear. Now, why are we using these confusing terms, Mr. Green? Because what's going to happen is I'm going to have to describe situations to you. And when I describe a situation, I say you've got 3 points and they're non-collinear. Well, you know they're not on the same line. 2 of them might be on one line and 2 of them on another line and 2 of them on a different line, but they're not on the same line at just one single line. So they're non-collinear. But if I tell you that you got 3 points that are coplanar, that means they're all on the same plane. Well, what would be an example of something not on the same plane? Think about a pizza box. If you took a pizza box and you stabbed a pencil into the pizza box, that would be a line passing through a plane, and it's not coplanar. It is off kilter. It is skewed in some respect. It's not on the same plane. Okay? Well, this is the first lesson, and what you'll be doing is you'll be going into the lesson and you'll be running through all the different screens are on there and doing the homework that's on there, the assigned problems. And if you get through with those problems, make certain you come to our Class Connect and we'll work through some of those problems if you have questions and make certain you understand how to do the assignments that you might have. Okay? After you feel comfortable with it, make certain you go take the quiz. Don't go taking the quiz if you're not comfortable with the information yet. Make certain you understand it before you go take that quiz. I want you to make certain you're doing good on these quizzes because that's where your grade is coming from, okay? Okay. Well, I will look for you next time this recording comes up. Oh, a couple things more I forgot. First of all, when you're sending communications to me, emails, K-mails, anything like that, all communications you're sending me, make certain you include your course number and section number. If you don't include this information, it's harder for me to find you, and it just makes your life a little bit more difficult. So I'm just trying to make certain that we make your life as easy as we possibly can. So include your course name and section number. It helps me find you quicker. Okay? Thank you.